Let's dive right into this explainer and look at the completely captivating story of the legendary founder of Carthage. For centuries, her name has conjured up images of romance, heartbreak, and ultimate tragedy. We're talking about one of the most famous women of classical antiquity, a towering figure who literally built an empire from the ground up on the coast of North Africa. But here's the thing, the version of her life that most of us are familiar with, it might actually be one of history's most successful, long-running smear campaigns.
So, did the founder of Carthage really die for a Trojan prince? I mean, we all know the famous tragic romance from our school days, but what if I told you almost none of it is actually true? The story of Queen Dido and the Trojan hero Aeneas is a massive cornerstone of Western literature. It's the classic tale of two star-crossed lovers whose doomed relationships supposedly set the stage for centuries of real-world warfare. But when we start peeling back the layers of ancient propaganda, we uncover a completely different woman. Let's unpack this and separate the brilliant historical tactician from the tragic mythical lover.
Section 1. The Myth of Aeneas. This particular version of the story was really cemented in Western culture way back in 19 BC by the Roman poet Virgil in his epic, the Aeneid. You have to remember, Rome needed an origin story that linked their grand destiny to their absolute greatest historical rival, Carthage. In Virgil's tale, Aeneas arrives on the shores of Carthage after fleeing the fall of Troy. Dido, who has just founded this thriving, prospering new city, welcomes him in. But of course, the gods have other plans. Venus and Juno conspire to make the clever, enterprising Dido fall madly for Aeneas. Using Cupid's dart, they hit her with this all-encompassing, blinding love. And this divine intervention completely derails her focus on her city, causing her to break her vow to never remarry and just throw everything away for this wandering prince.
But Aeneas has a destiny to fulfill in Italy. When Jupiter forces Aeneas to abandon her to go found Rome, a completely heartbroken Dido confronts him, and he basically refuses to stay, claiming, he just can't fight fate. As his fleet sails away, Dido curses him. She actually proclaims endless hate between Carthage and the descendants of Troy. Now, this is a masterful piece of storytelling by Virgil because it brilliantly foreshadows the brutal, real-world Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage that would happen centuries later.
Overcome with grief and completely enraged by his betrayal, she has her sister Anna build a massive pyre, pretending it's just a ritual to burn Aeneas's belongings. But instead, she tragically stabs herself with Aeneas's own sword as his ships disappear into the distance. It is a highly dramatic, super emotional exit, and it permanently branded Dido in the public consciousness as the ultimate abandoned, lovesick victim.
But notice how the Romans completely hijacked her story here. When we actually look past Virgil's Aeneid to the older Greek and Phoenician texts, they reveal a totally different, fiercely independent leader. The Roman narrative essentially reduced a formidable empire builder to a mere stepping stone in a man's journey. The original Dido didn't die for a Trojan prince at all. She died to protect her people and her own autonomy.
Section 2. The original founder queen.
Long before Virgil even came along, historians like Timaeus and later Justin wrote about a brilliant woman originally named Alyssa. She was a princess of the wealthy Phoenician city of Tyre. Now, after her greedy brother Pygmalion murdered her wealthy husband, she brilliantly orchestrated what's essentially an ancient heist to escape. Knowing Pygmalion wanted her dead husband's wealth, she played him. She pretended she wanted to move into his palace. When he gladly sent attendants to help her move, Dido filled heavy bags with sand and dramatically threw them into the sea, claiming it was an offering to her husband's ghost. Then she turns to the terrified attendants and convinces them that Pygmalion would undoubtedly execute them all for losing the treasure, leaving them only one option: flee with her to a new land. Just brilliant.
Upon reaching the coast of North Africa, she didn't just conquer with an army. Now, she outsmarted the locals with this legendary real estate loophole. She asked to buy only as much land as an ox hide could cover. The locals thought she was a fool, so they agreed. But Dido cut the hide into incredibly fine, razor-thin strips, tying them together to encircle an entire massive hill. This hill became known as Bursa, which means hide, where her people then dug up a horse's head. In ancient omens, this signaled that they would build a powerful, warlike city, and that city was the mighty Carthage.
Under her amazing leadership, Carthage grew incredibly prosperous. But of course, this attracted the attention of a local king, Iarbas, who threatened war against the new city unless Dido married him. So to save Carthage and stay faithful to the memory of her murdered first husband, she devised a tragic yet intensely empowering final act. She built a massive pyre under the guise of an appeasement ritual. But instead of marrying the king, she ascended the pyre and took her own life, declaring she would go to her husband as her people had desired. She sacrificed herself for her city's independence, not out of some romantic despair.
Section 3. Was Queen Dido real?
So the big question is, was this badass founder an actual historical figure or just another ancient myth woven by later historians? Well, the etymology of her name strongly suggests she was very real. Both names are deeply rooted in actual Punic and Semitic languages. Dido likely stems from a root meaning the wanderer or beloved, actually very similar to the root for the name David. Elisa, or Elishat, appears repeatedly on Punic votive offerings, combining the words for God and fire, or woman. This strongly indicates that the Greek authors didn't just invent her out of thin air. They adapted genuine, existing Phoenician accounts of a real leader. And beyond just her name, physical inscriptions and ancient court records build a really compelling historical case for her existence. The Jewish historian Josephus, quoting a list of Tyrrhene kings, explicitly mentions Pygmalion, noting that in his 7th year, his sister fled and built Carthage. Plus, we have the Nora stone, an artifact from the 9th century BC found in Sardinia, which contains an inscription that scholars believe actually names Pygmalion. We even have Assyrian records of tribute from Dido's grandfather, King Baal-Azar II, in 841 BC. So her royal family tree is demonstrably real. But here is the ultimate math moment that busts the Roman myth completely wide open. Think about the timeline of the Trojan War compared to Dido's actual life. The Trojan War, when Aeneas supposedly lived and fought, is conventionally dated between the 14th and 12th centuries BC. However, based on those historical Tyrian king lists and the foundation dates of Carthage by classical historians, Dido fled Tyre around 825 BC and founded Carthage around 814 BC.
That means there is a massive gap of over 300 years between them. I mean, even if you use the most aggressive historical revisions for the Trojan War, Aeneas would have been nearly 90 years old when she founded Carthage, making their tragic romance chronologically impossible. Virgil completely fabricated their meeting to serve his own narrative purpose, literally pulling a historical queen out of her timeline to serve as a foil for his fictional Roman hero.
Section 4. An enduring global legacy. Regardless of what's historical fact and what's just Roman propaganda, Dido's impact on global culture is absolutely staggering. She's transcended the ancient world to become this universal symbol of female power, tragic love, and strategic brilliance. From being condemned in Dante's Inferno among the lustful, to being praised as a virtuous widow by Boccaccio and Chaucer, her legacy has been endlessly debated. She has fascinated artists, writers, and scientists for millennia. She's referenced heavily by Shakespeare, she stars in Henry Purcell's famous 1689 opera, and today she's even leading digital empires as a playable leader in the popular Civilization video game series. You'll find an asteroid named after her, a mountain in Antarctica, and her portrait even graces the modern Tunisian dinar. She is everywhere.
She even left her mark on mathematics. Get this, the classic isoperimetric problem in the calculus of variations, which is the challenge of enclosing the maximum possible area within a fixed boundary, is famously known as Dido's problem. This perfectly proves that her brilliant strategic mind, immortalized by her clever oxide trick, was just as memorable to history as her fictional heartbreak.
Which leaves us with a genuinely fascinating question to ponder. How many other brilliant historical figures have had their true legacies overshadowed by a good story? Dido was a mastermind, a survivor, and a nation builder who outwitted kings. Yet for 2,000 years, the world primarily remembered her as a crying woman on a pyre, all because a Roman poet needed a dramatic plot twist. Next time you hear a historical myth, ask yourself whose story is really being told and what powerful truths have been left behind.